Привет, добро пожаловать обратно в Evolve HQ. Ich heiße Dylan, geboren und aufgewachsen in Mauritius. Je vis à l'étranger depuis mes 19 ans, aber ich wohne gerade in Paris und war bisher in 34 Ländern. Ja, говорю 4 языка, and today I'm gonna give you guys 5 key tips that help me to become a polyglot. Welcome to Evolve HQ.
Hey, you know my job now. Welcome back to Evolve. Today we're going to be speaking with Dylan, a polyglot from Mauritius, who will be sharing his 5 key tips to mastering languages. So Dylan, you speak obviously Mauritian. Creole is your mother tongue.
Yeah, that's Creole, like Mauritian Creole, yeah. That's my mother tongue. English, French, German, and a little bit of Russian.
Okay, he's being humble. I've heard him speak Russian with his friends, and it's definitely not a little bit. But so let's get straight into this. What is the first tip you would say for a new language learner that they should employ in order to improve their language skills?
I would say the first one is to immerse yourself, like just dive in head first into the language. What I mean by that is just to really surround yourself with as much material as you can find, especially in that era whereby you pretty much have access to all sorts of information right now, like on the internet. So we're living in a time where resources are pretty much unlimited. So going online, YouTube, Netflix, Spotify, Audible, and all of these sources are really good places to start learning a language. If I use myself as an example, I remember coming back from school, just getting on the computer, going to on YouTube and starting to watch FIFA videos. And unknowingly, I was picking up the language, picking up the accents, and at the same time, it was some form of entertainment. So I was using that form of entertainment to improve my language skills. But I was not aware that I was improving my language skills back then. So I would say that's the very first tip. To immerse yourself in the language as much as you can. Surround yourself by native speakers. There's no need to, go move to a certain place nowadays. I say if you want to learn English, there's no point in moving to America or being in the UK, for instance. You can easily do that from your own room back at your house.
And I mean, your example, because we met in Reunion Island, which is part of France. But the way you were speaking English at that time, I noticed did you live in the UK before? There were certain British nuances to your language skills that I guess, did you say it was from KSI at the time?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct. Shout out to all the KSI fans out there. So how it started, I had a really, the content I was consuming online was mainly oriented towards FIFA, so the game. And back then on YouTube, I got KSI suggested as a channel. So YouTube was still starting to blow up in Mauritius. It was not really a really big deal back then. And then that's how I discovered the channel. I was like, okay, this guy is funny. I kind of understand what he was speaking about, but not everything either, because he was using a lot of slang and a lot of swearing words. But for me, it was mostly about watching FIFA. So it was some form of entertainment to me, right? And by watching FIFA, I was listening to what he was saying, speaking to his old friends, speaking to people online, and all his videos were more or less the same. So, intro, FIFA content, and outro. And by listening to that, I was just consuming the content without knowing it. So when it comes to the accents, the phrases, the slang, all come straight from YouTube. That's how I gained the foundation of how native speakers spoke.
But then at that time, were you actually looking up words or making any notes, or was that all just passive learning while you were enjoying?
I think it was mostly passive learning while enjoying FIFA videos online. So, but it would not make any sense because coming to the next point maybe is I started learning English. So at school, it was already out, the groundwork was already laid there, right? The groundwork was somehow already laid because I studied English and French at school, but it was mostly written French and English. It was not spoken, so we don't really have the chance. I don't know, maybe it changed now in Mauritius and people have the chance to express themselves at an earlier stage in their lives, but I didn't get that chance. So for me, YouTube was somehow escape to listen to people. And after that, we'll come to that point maybe later, where I started making videos by myself, just to see the progress.
Exactly, because I've met a lot of people from Mauritius and they speak English very well, but they don't have that British kind of accent that you do, and they don't have that awareness of some of the local expressions and slang that allowed you when we met to kind of 10 years ago in reunion to connect and understand each other more. Because I just remember being shocked, like, how do you know this? Oh, KSI. Okay, that makes a lot of sense now.
That was actually a song from KSI, right? I can't remember the song exactly, the title of the song, but it was like pretty iconic at that time. Yeah. It was like the KSI song. Yeah. So, like obviously, like when you start consuming the content, you start not only like learning new things, but you will also get yourself into the culture. So, I was getting exposed more and more to the British culture without even knowing that I was like, right into the thing. So not only the slang, picking up the music, UK rap, watching BBC World News, getting into garage music, UK D&B, for instance. Mm-hmm. I started listening to BBC Radio 1 on Friday nights. So it's just
full
like
immersion,
full immersion, I'd say. So when we met in La Réunion, which for me was, I didn't have any plans to, perhaps become better in English, but I got myself into a situation where it was the right platform for me, because I was welcoming Erasmus students. And most of the time when they're coming to La Réunion, they're not like really good French speakers. I'm not like
I was one of those at the time.
So and the common language between us would be English. So gradually, while doing that small student job, you're just welcoming Erasmus students, you're showing them around, you're organizing parties, events, and all that stuff. And I think you might be the first batch that I met, like in La Réunion. So, but you were not, I think you were the first British person I met, like I came across. So just so random, right?
I apologize. if that's the mark I've left.
It's just so random. So, when we first met, and then you said, how the hell do you know KSI? Like, why? It's just so random, because we're on a remote island, right? Tucked in the middle of nowhere, in the ocean. Someone who is not even from that island studying there knows KSI. Sometimes even British people don't know who KSI is. So, and at that time, he was not that popular as he is, like not really famous as he is right now. That was pretty niche. So coming across someone who shares the same interest and same passion, I was like, wait, what? I was just as surprised as you were. Yep. So, and then you started telling me, oh man, like your English is like, it was not as good as it is right now, but it was kind of fluent, and I was trying to avoid speaking broken English. So that kind of gave me like a confidence, like inner confidence boost somehow to go even further. So I was just like, practicing and just using people around to practice my English, which was not the right strategy at that time. People are met to learn French, which was not ideal for the people coming to La Réunion, because they were there to learn French, so I was supposed to be speaking French to them. But that was the main reason why I was hired in the first place by the uni to do that job, because I was kind of bilingual. Not kind, but I was bilingual. But both my French and my English were not totally amazing, I'd say. But I could make the most out of it, I would say. So so that's a short story about when we met in La Réunion and how that carried, like, push myself. Let's put it this way: like push myself towards the language even more.
For sure. And I mean, imagine at that time when we met and we were talking about YouTube back then. Could you imagine if someone told us, if someone had told us, in 10 years, in 2025, we'll be sitting down on YouTube together talking about that. It's crazy, right? But okay.
Just crazy. So the second key point I would say is to be really self-critical. And by that, I mean, so we just spoken about English, right? I'll just tell you the story behind my French, how my French got better over time. So it goes back like way, way back to high school. I was not the smartest kid in the class, but I was trying my best. So when it came to languages, especially French, I was really bad at it. Written wise, spoken wise, I was not the best student at that time. So to compensate that, my parents signed me up for some extra lessons. So I was taking extra lessons outside of my classes at school. My fellow Mauritians might know what I'm talking about right now, but yeah, it's just such a classic thing to Mauritius. So that teacher who was teaching French at the time was giving essays, just like classic essays, grammar, exercises, vocab, and all that. And to a point where I didn't really care at that time. I was just like, yeah, I'm just there. I'll just go there, attend the classes, and maybe get like an A or B, maybe get like a B or C at the end. I don't care. And then up to a point where what really like changed my mind about getting myself into French was, it was one day, right? It was that Friday. I'm not sure if he's watching right now. It was that Friday evening when he took one of my essays and just said, like, right in front of the class, don't be like Dylan. That guy just made a biryani out. He just mixed all the rules that we learned over the last 6 months, just mixed it, made a biryani out of everything.
Ugh.
So, yeah, and that hit me hard, that really hit me hard because we were in front of 40 students or something.
Goodness.
So, I was like, you don't know whom you just attack. Like I'm gonna really step my up. So and that's how it started with French. Like my main strategy was exactly the same as English, because my English was starting to get kind of on a good level. Maybe not spoken wise, but written wise, it was much better than my French at that time. So I was more at ease writing and reading English than French. And then I was like, okay, I'm just gonna adopt the same strategy, but instead of doing it with entertainment, I'm gonna do it with the news this time. So Mauritius at the time started broadcasting many French news channel. France 24 is pretty popular. So every single morning, I swear, every single morning before going to school, I would turn the TV up and just watch the news straight for 30 minutes. I didn't care what were the news. I just wanted to listen to those journalists just reading out the news loud. So, and at night while coming back from school, I'll watch BBC. So I was having my French, dose in the morning and my English dose at night. Since my French was not as good as my English, I was putting a little bit more effort into French. So listening to radio stations, podcasts, reading more. I started reading a lot of magazines, newspapers, because that's a weird thing. Like in Mauritius, the main language is English, right? But most people it's really trendy to move to French media. Most of radio stations speak French. Like the main news hour at 7:30 every day, it's in French instead of English. So I was like, okay, that's a perfect opportunity for me to improve my language. So up to a point, I was listening to those journalists every single day, up to a point where my written and spoken French started to be in a journalistic way. Can I say that?
Yeah, because I'm wondering, obviously we've spoken about the resources.
Yeah.
But how did that actually translate to having a higher accuracy of the language? Like, how did your writing improve? In that class then, you were listening to all of this, but did that on its own just lead to your marks going up? How did that, like you said about being self-critical?
Yeah.
How did you put that into your studies as well?
So it goes like this. Whatever I was learning over the week or every 2 weeks, I'll make notes and write down the difficult words and terms I've learned over the last 2 weeks. And it's pretty old-fashioned way, but who cares?
But it worked, right?
It did work. So, and then I would have those lists, and each time there would be an essay or a grammar exercise to do. I'll try to squeeze in few words or few sentences that I've learned over the last 2-3 weeks. And how I noticed I was getting better, it was my teacher who called my parents and were like, he was like, well, you know what? I think there's something going on with him. Like a few months later, there's definitely something going on. Because I've noticed a drastic change in his way of, writing, in his the vocabulary he's using. But not only about that, I was also getting the culture as well, because I'm watching French news. So I knew who was the prime minister. I knew who was the finance minister. I knew about the Paris news. I knew what was going on across France. So if there was a thunderstorm a few days ago, I would be like, oh, right, yeah, I know what happened. I knew more what was going on in different countries than in my own country at some point. So that's
and you're
weird.
Explaining it because you've taken it, absorbed all of the news.
Right.
When you're expressing yourself, you're just, you've consumed so much, you know how to convey that like the journalist, right? Which is a higher level of language.
Exactly.
KSI is one form of language, but then the news is another form. And probably for your exams, KSI is great for making friends, I would say. But for your exams, maybe you shouldn't be writing, bro, the news and whatever. You gotta.
Allow the fam, allow it. No, we're not taking that to Cambridge A levels, mate.
Exactly.
We're not doing that.
Oh,
that's for sure. Yeah.
That's such a great point of. Yeah, of course. If you're consuming people who speak in that way, your grades are definitely combine that with your studies, like you said, put it in the list. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think you can really skyrocket your language skills by putting your brain the brain is fantastic. It's crazy how it works, especially for bilingual people who get ability to speak 2, 3, 4 more languages. And I feel like that's the way you should do it if you want your kid or if you just grew up somewhere where English is not spoken, generally spoken across, or you want to learn Chinese or whatever. That's how you should do it. That's how you should do it. The third point is vocabulary is absolutely pointless while learning a language. And that's a bit
That's controversial. What do you mean pointless?
It's, in the very beginning of in the language learning process, I feel like in the beginning, it's just not worth it to learn random words, because it's been proven. If you go online, any apps like Duolingo, be it Rosetta Stone or whatsoever, right? They tell you if you have a pool of words of 3,000 words, it's more than enough to speak a language. So what's the point of just putting a dictionary in your brain where you can't really construct a proper phrase or sentence with proper grammar and proper structure? So what would that bring to me if I learned how to say blue car in Russian instead of someone is driving a blue car, or someone who is driving a blue car just cross across the street? That would be more useful than just saying blue car only. So that's how I see it. I feel like the vocabulary would obviously get enhanced the more you start going further in the language learning process. But in the beginning stages, it's not really not really worth it to just take a dictionary and just read everything out loud and try to memorize.
If you're suggesting that people don't just learn words on their own, how can they actually study then? What would you suggest instead of that?
So, there are several ways to deal with that, that particular topic. But I guess the main one would be to construct your own decks. I call it decks because Anki, I don't know if you know you've heard about Anki, right? So Anki is pretty much a Japanese way of memorizing, and flashcards is pretty much about flashcards. So when it comes to vocab, I would construct my own decks in Anki and put the vocabs in there and try to deal with flashcards every now and then. So there's also Pimsleur, which is a really, really good way of learning. It's pretty much podcast, listening and repeating one, where you hear some people say having conversation in your ears, and then you have to listen to that and then try to answer it with your own words by the words you've listened before. So prior to listening to that episode, you've already learned a few other words in the previous episodes. So you know the words that's going to be spoken, and you can use the words that have been spoken before to construct the next
So it's like a practical.
Exactly.
Yeah. But when you say the flashcards, then if it's not vocab, then what are on these flashcards? What are you putting into those things that you're memorizing?
Yeah, I would go like it goes back to the same point as like we started, like phrases, sentences. Sometimes I would just put a conversation, like straight conversation in there just to remember. Because let's say if I say, how are you? I'm expecting that person to say, I'm fine. So while learning how to say, how are you? I'll also learn how to say, I'm fine. So I clearly know what's coming up, you know? So it's easier for me to learn this way because I kind of know what's coming up next. If I'm saying, how are you? They won't be just saying like random stuff after, right? So it's going to be like, I'm fine, and you, what are you doing? Whereabouts you going? You know, like I just learned patterns. I think it's easier.
Yeah,
that is for me. I don't know.
It's so true because I learned in Indonesia, I learned how to say apa kabar, which means how are you? And I know like bye is good, but then after that I have no idea. So whenever they say, I'll see in Indonesian, I'll say apa kabar.
Yeah.
And then after when they say there's something back, I just look at them really awkwardly because I didn't do what you were saying. Yeah. So I think that's a really good point. Very, very good point indeed. Yeah.
So yeah, that's how you fill in the blanks and you kind of anticipate what's going to be said and you learn it. And you try to memorize it. I don't know if there are other people who use this way, but I find it easier sometimes to communicate with people. And it's another point I want to mention is I don't know, like, for example, with Russian or German, I didn't know how to read in the beginning because they have different intonations, they have different way of writing, like Russian is Cyrillic pretty much. So sometimes you don't need to, you don't have to know how to read the characters or how to spell the words correctly. You just have to listen and try to mimic the accents, mimic the way that native speakers are speaking. And so that's how you do it. So most of the language polyglots that you find online, sometimes they don't know how to read or they don't know how the word is written. They just know how. It goes back to how babies learn. They hear something, like they just know how the sound of it, right? And they would just repeat the same sounds. They don't know how it's written, how it's like, so that's the point. I would say that's the point. Yeah.
Awesome.
So the fourth point is surround yourself with native speakers ASAP, ASAP. So back in the days, we didn't really have proper infrastructures, online infrastructures, I would say, like language learning tools, language learning platforms. Omegle was not really a thing back then. So how I did it, I was, again, put in situations where I was surrounded by not necessarily native speakers, but people who spoke the language fluently. So Erasmus is a fantastic thing. And I got the chance to experience it. So it goes back to my time in La Réunion, where many people were coming from all around the world, and they were not necessarily speaking really proper French, but some of them were like really good, had a really good level. I think you're amongst those, maybe.
Il est vraiment gentil. Hein?
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of surprised, like how good your French was. It's just like surrounding yourself by people who already speak the language. So it's not necessary. That doesn't necessarily mean if someone is Swedish, like you should be learning Swedish. Chances are that they're going to be having some basic or maybe more advanced English level. So that's the main point, is to not base yourself on the nationality of that person whom you're talking to learn the language. So let's say if it's English or German, you could learn from people who are from Germany, Austria, Switzerland. Of course, it's not all the same. Like they all have their slang, like their own way of saying things. But still, like you get the touch. Like you could pick up the words, and people find that like kind of cool sometimes. There's always like the battle between French and Canadians. They would say like chocolatine and like stuff like that, like pain au chocolat. And it's like, So I think it's just a cool way of interacting with people. And once you start like speaking or you use a word which is proper to a certain region or like a certain town, and they are not expecting you to use that word, they're like, what, like, why do you know this? You know, so it's a fun way. You are somehow interacting with people in a fun way, and at the same time, you are learning new words. So that's how I see it.
I think you mentioned a really important point there, where when you're at the level where you embrace the differences of, okay, this is British English or this is Quebecois, your understanding is deeper than just one country now.
Exactly.
And that's when someone, I feel like, if you can hear, oh, that's West African French.
Yeah.
Oh, that's probably someone with a Creole accent.
Yeah.
You know, maybe they're Mauritian, maybe they're Réunionnais. Like,
I reckon that we should not be limiting ourselves to accents. That's how I see it. Like, I got into watching mostly British people at the very beginning. Maybe that's why my accent is a bit mixed, and people are like, "Oh yeah, you're from England or something." But I've never lived in England before, so I've never lived in England in my whole life. I go there quite often, like for Christmas and stuff, but that's pretty much it.
But in your whole life combined, you probably haven't spent more than like a few months even in the UK, right?
Yeah, not at all.
Which I think is this is the proof, right? Of like, you've culturally, through the media you consume, been immersed in British culture, but also you spent a lot of time with Brits as well.
Exactly.
And yeah, for someone to, you know, those kind of nuances, pronunciation, and the cultural understanding above all, like, I can be sarcastic with this guy. He's not going to take it in a bad way. And that's because, you know, that humor, like, you can't, like that, it's so hard to believe that someone who's that aware of our culture hasn't actually been in the UK.
Yeah. Well, sometimes people say that, he's either lived there or worked there or attended school there, but I've done none of that. And when I tell people, I've learned all of this through YouTube, they're like, what? Like, we don't use YouTube this way, you know, or TikTok. But we should not be limiting ourselves to accents and to the countries, because I feel like if you're learning English, you will learn British English, or it doesn't matter if you're learning American or British English. At the end, you were just learning English pretty much. It's all about, like, you know, maybe regional accents and stuff, but at the end of the day, who cares? Like, as long as you're fluent in the language, that's what I find. I'm not, like, you know, saying that if you're learning English, you should be having like a perfect fluent accent from the Queen's English, or it would be like Scouse, or like, you know, whatever accent we can find in English. Same with German, Spanish, or Portuguese, whatever you're getting into. As long as you are exposed to a certain language, you'll be fine.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned that, because I get it. For passing exams or integrating with people, I do feel like if you're in America, it could maybe help you to imitate the American accent. It's not necessarily essential. But then again, when I was in Réunion and I met Mauritians or whatever, I would like to like pick up some of the things, you know, aujourd'hui becomes zordi.
Yeah.
You know, these little things that people would, les bons, you know, people appreciate those things, and having an open mind to it can, I think, help you integrate with people more. And when you integrate with them, your motivation to keep learning is going to increase, I would say. Like, if you feel like really apart from people, you're not going to have that same motivation to just like, I'm going to keep studying. Whereas like, oh, I've spent time with some Créole now, and, you know, I've been learning this Créole, but they would help me distinguish, okay, this is Créole, this is French, this one for the market, you know, this one for the exam, you know, and like, it was fun, you know, you make it into a game. So
that point about accent that I just made, it links somehow to my final point, which is a very practical and handy one, like way of knowing if you're really progressing in the language. It's recording yourself and tracking your progress over time. Using myself as an example, I really wanted to be a YouTuber. So I did have the skills to speak at that time. I was like, how can I, you know, put the content out and people not being judged by people pretty much. So at that time I was like, yeah, you know what? Let's just YOLO it, record it, and we'll post it on YouTube and see what people think. Obviously, like, family and friends would not, like, you know, drag you down. They'd be like, yeah, that's fantastic. But deep inside, you know that you're like, you could be doing so much better. Like, it's way, way, way much better. But the cool thing is, I was recording myself, and there was no really, like, end purpose in doing so. Like, there was not like a final thing that I wanted to achieve with that. It was just about recording myself and watching myself later. I'll be like, I could have done that like in a much better way. So I started trying vlogs, which kind of worked in the beginning, but it was not like as amazing as I would have. And then I moved on to gaming content. I was trying to mimic some gaming YouTube channels back in the days. I think, how was it called? Macromania or something. I forgot the name, but anyway, just trying to mimic presenters, like gaming presenters, and, posting random stuff about my life. Like I was going somewhere, just record myself speaking in English or French, and at that time I was feeling somehow stupid about it because just holding a camera in public, especially in Mauritius like 10 years ago. Like people are not quite used to that. I feel like still getting used to it nowadays. Imagine like 10 years ago, it was even more awkward to be in public and speaking to a camera, let alone speaking in English to a camera. So it was an experience. But luckily, I got all that footage and I uploaded everything to YouTube. So when I go back and see where I started from, and you can see the progress like every 6 months, every year. Okay, that's how I sounded like. That's how I was not confident enough in front of the camera. Now I'm like more. What I'm doing right now with you is just crazy to me. I would have never imagined doing that 10 years or 15 years ago. I just feel like it's just natural. Like to me now, it looks natural, but it just takes so much work behind the scenes, I believe. And also, it's all about having a community. If you have the right community, the right people following you, they would eventually tell you, okay, yeah, you could have said that in this way, just like you did. Like a few times you would correct me. And some people would like, he's just like, trying to pull me down or something. But I was taking those remarks in a positive way. I was like, all right, I'll try to do much better next time. So just have to keep improving and keeping track of what you've done previously. I feel like it gives you the confidence and the motivation to keep moving forward, especially if you can always go back and see where you came from. And right now, if I just pull any videos of me speaking like 15 years ago, I might just send that with you.
Yeah, we've got to put it on there because it's actually really difficult. C'est vraiment difficile à croire that like Dylan, whose French is not like perfect, because I'm here with you in Paris now, and you are the lifesaver. Even though I speak French, it's just your level. And you even say, like, some people are a bit shocked. They're like, oh, why is this Indian-looking guy speaking French so well? You know?
Yeah.
So to know that there was a time where you were being used as an example in class for having terrible French, I mean, I can't really imagine that. But what you mentioned about correcting each other, I mean, Nabila, who also worked with you.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah, we've had her on the channel as well. All of us would correct each other so much in reunion, where I would constantly be looking out for ways to improve your English. You guys would always be looking out to improve my French. And that's how you improve. No pain, no gain. But I feel like there's a point where you stop seeing it as a bad thing. You just get... I'm almost annoyed now if someone doesn't correct me in our close group, because it's like, oh, you don't want me to improve anymore?
Yeah. I do get what you mean, especially when it comes to like really... technical languages like French. I mean, just like a quick comparison. In English, you would be you, like you would use it for you, right? And in French, it could be tu, vous, and the way the verb that follows would be written is a completely different way, right? So if someone was speaking, you would not know if the verb was written correctly or not.
Yes.
But another way that you could correct someone, I mean, that was the written example, right? The way people would correct someone else is they can't say if it's feminine or masculine or genitive in German. So le, la, les, L apostrophe en français. Donc, ouais, je pense que ça aide.
For sure. And I mean, even in Créole as well, you have like, is it in Mauritian Créole, there's to and there's oo as well.
Yeah.
But the oo in Mauritian Creole is more formal than the oo
exactly.
in Réunionnais.
Oh, it's a weird mix. I would say it's a really weird mix. And something else, like coming to your point about Creole as well. I know it's bad, like sometimes to let your mother tongue away, but I did do that. I had to do it because Creole is just such a mix of English, French, and other Latin-based languages. There's even some German in there. Sometimes I hear some German words. So I had to let down my own mother tongue to concentrate on other languages because it was getting in between. Written Creole, don't get me wrong, written Creole is pretty hard to read. And it's so close to French and so close to English. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, you know what? I have to put that away for some time just to be like, surrounded by proper French speakers or English speakers. So yeah, it's you have to sometimes let your mother tongue down just to learn other languages.
Yeah, but the point about recording the language that you mentioned, how did you actually use that? Like, how did your accent actually improve?
Okay, so I think it's a lot of passive learning that I was doing without knowing again. I feel like recording myself. So recording it's not only about setting up the camera and just speaking to it. You have to have like a script. You have to know like what you're going to be speaking about. And I feel like the more you do it, like in the very beginning, you're gonna look awkward. You're gonna sound awkward. The script is not gonna make any sense to you. The structure of the phrases is gonna be like all over the place. But the more you do it, the better you get at it. And obviously, as you move forward, the accents gets better. The accent get better. The way you speak, the flow, it feels natural to you. And just saying certain things, using certain slang every now and then would become more natural. And the fact that I was not only recording myself reading the news, for instance, I really like BBC. So I was sometimes recording myself reading the BBC news. I would just take the same footage of BBC, listen to that, and try to mimic the accents. And record myself doing that and then posting it on YouTube. But I was not only doing that on the news, through using the news, I was also like trying to produce content as well, like FIFA content. So I would sometimes be like, really, my reaction, like playing online with other people. I think these little things just keep building blocks and it helps you achieving like, a certain level in a certain language.
But would you listen back and say, oh, this doesn't sound that natural? Because obviously Mauritians, a lot of them have, like, I've met so many who speak English and French very well, but they have more of a Mauritian accent that comes, I guess, from the Creole. But then with you, gradually you started to get more and more of this kind of British accent that you had. Were you consciously like, oh, I'm sounding more British now. Oh, I need to sound more British. Or it just happened passively? Or did you actually think like, that sounds French, or that sounds Creole?
Yeah, I get your point. I think it just happened passively. Like I had no idea that I was gonna sound like this 10 years later.
Okay.
So
because I'm way more conscious. Like
really?
I'm thinking like, okay, man, non. Moi, je vais essayer parler comme un créole.
Right.
In my mind, I'm like that. Or like,
Yeah,
non, mais maintenant, j'essaie d'adapter parce que je suis à Paris, et je suis avec avec les gens, comment dire ça, de l'Hexagone.
Ah oui, de l'Hexagone. En fait, je pense aussi, on peut parler français.
Ouais, vas-y.
On est multilingue, donc en fait, je pense aussi, il y a toute la partie où si jamais tu es intéressé par une certaine région, on va dire, si tu veux adapter le québécois, par exemple, si ton kiff, c'est tout à fait possible aussi. Donc moi, je voulais quelque chose qui est vraiment plain, normal sounding,
standard, on peut dire.
Standard, voilà. Quand il s'agit de mots français, tu vois. Mais éventuellement, quand j'étais à La Réunion, mon français n'était pas comme c'est maintenant, tu vois. Ça a beaucoup changé. Je pense que je fais toujours des erreurs en parlant, tu vois, ou des fois.
C'est dur, hein, le français. Hein.
Ouais, c'est dur, tu vois. Mais éventuellement, quand j'étais à La Réunion, vu que j'étais exposé à plusieurs langues, l'allemand, etc., t'essayes de quelque part parler avec un minimal d'accent, tu vois. T'essaies de faire l'effort, en fait, tu fais l'effort quelque part de parler avec un accent très minime. Après, voilà, quand les gens te disent ouais, tu viens de Paris, ah ouais, mais moi je suis de Paris 17, écoute, on vient de la soirée vendredi soir, on a bu quelques verres, tu vois, là c'est
on s'éclate.
on s'éclate, on va faire la fête, écoute, moi j'ai fumé des clopes.
Ouais. Ça c'est real Parisian, ça c'est un vrai Parisien.
Parisian style we're speaking. I try to avoid that because I mean I could eventually get into it, but I try to avoid it as much as I can. That was a French way how I try to like maintain a standard way of speaking when it comes to French. But English, I just learned it passively, and I got the accent like naturally, I would say.
That's interesting because even we had friends from Réunion who were from China.
Okay.
You know, so but then they went to work in Africa.
Yeah.
And I would call them sometimes on WeChat, and they would say, "Ah, Hakim, comment vas-tu?" And I was like, "Oh, merci. Moi je vais bien.
Yeah.
Comment vas-tu?"
It's actually crazy how fast, just a quick anecdote here, it's actually crazy how fast you can pick up an accent, especially if you're at an advanced stage of learning the language. Just a quick anecdote here. There was that guy from Quebec who was on an exchange program in La Réunion. And since he could not get his cruise room when he landed in La Réunion, I was like, all right, you know what? You can crash at my place for a few days. I don't mind. So he was sleeping at my place for like 4 or 5 days. After he left, bro, I sounded Quebecois for some reason. Crazy. My French became Quebecois, and people around me were like, "Why do you sound so Canadian right now?" Like, you know, it's not how fast your brain wires to the environment you're in certain circumstances, I would say. So if I go to the UK, I go to Manchester. And or I've been like around people who have like Queen's English or like RP's English or Scottish. It's the change is pretty much seamless. Wow. I would just pick it up like so quick, and all of a sudden I find myself like, you know, I'm there. I can you know. So yeah, it's fascinating.
It's an awesome example, and I feel like it's the fixed versus growth mindset kind of thing here that. If you see languages as an evolution, evolve, as we say here, you can be flexible with it. Right. It might be harder. Some are harder than others. Right. But I just found, you know, growing up with African family, hearing African French, it just started to, like, the more I heard it, the more I just felt comfortable. Even with Créole as well.
Your brain, right?
Like, c'est normal.
Yeah.
Normal, ça. You know, you just start doing it, and I don't know, it just feels fun. Yeah. Like people like kind of appreciate it. If they know you're doing it out of a place of appreciation, I think people are going to be gassed. Like when I heard you for the first time in Réunion speaking with that British accent, I was just like, what? Like I was so confused, but so flattered as well that like this guy's into my culture. It was a beautiful thing. So could you like maybe show us a bit of your language skills? I mean, a lot of people probably don't even know what Créole is. So maybe in Créole, could you tell us what is Créole?
Bon, Créole, pour commencer, il y a une mix dans différentes langues. Donc, il y a un mix français, anglais, un peu hindi, tout cas, il y a un peu allemand, et des fois, notamment flas, par exemple, qui est un mot qui est servi dans Maurice. C'est un mot allemand, die Flasche, auf Deutsch. Et les un mix, en fait, me trouvait qu'il est un peu compliqué pour vraiment mettre une explication là. Mais moi, penser Créole est vraiment rapproché avec français et anglais. Mais make no mistake about it, it's a fantastic language.
Ça, c'est un vrai mélange, hein?
C'est un vrai mélange. Mais comme on peut causer là, moi pensée qui te comprend moi un petit peu.
Mais comprend hein. Créole réunionnais, mais comprend mieux, mais connaît pas répond en créole mauricien. Ouais. Mais comprend à où?
C'est exactement la même chose pour moi aussi. Quand moi tu peux habiter la Réunion, ban Jimoun dans la Réunion, tu peux penser ouais, en fait, mon rayonné. Donc,
non, mais ça c'est malbar, ça.
Donc, ils vont causer avec moi, créole rayonné, and they'll be like, oh, are you taking the, or are you responding like in French or something? I'm like, oh yeah.
Il dit n'importe quoi.
Ouais, il dit n'importe quoi. T'es gars, t'es de la Réunion.
Arrête à où?
Pourquoi oui, pas cause créole, gars. Tu vois, c'est un peu ça, en fait, le créole. Moi pas linguiste, donc moi pas vraiment connais comment pour décrire la langue, mais c'est un peu ça explication qui me donne là juste avant. Mon créole est vraiment influencé avec français et anglais.
Même accent ou pas?
Même au niveau de mon accent, parce que assez comme à Maurice, moi essaye cause créole comment va dire cause là-bas, mais des fois quand tu as le certain place, moi on commence que je dis ah ouais ok, il reste des hauts, soit il apprend créole un peu des hauts ou ce ban parents pas d'ici, donc il y a un peu dans ce sens-là en fait. Mais moi essayer de faire ma baisse, et c'est vrai qu'il me donne une influence un peu plus britannique et que français. Mais il pas de un point que comment dire, moi pas envie de flatter ou voilà. C'est vrai qu'il m'emploie beaucoup de mots français, beaucoup de mots anglais des fois. Mais c'est moi pas là pour comment dire, show off ou whatsoever.
Non, mais mon content l'accent créole.
L'accent mauricien, ouais.
Mauricien rayonné. Ouais. Il y a quelque chose, je ne connais pas comment expliquer, mais bana, quand bana cause.
You got a weak spot for Creole language,
énergie unique, hein. C'est énergie unique, hein. C'est fort. C'est pas. Qu'est-ce que vous voulez faire?
C'est très expressif en fait.
Qu'est-ce qu'il veut faire, gars?
Surtout la Réunion, moi trouve la Réunion, c'est créole un peu plus. Shout out to ban rayonné, je suis cette vidéo là. Dans ces 80 nous pas tout.
Zamalia, elle est là.
Ouais. En fait, moi pensais que créole rayonné est beaucoup plus expressif quand on compare à créole mauricien.
Ah bon?
Oui, l'idée pas en fait. Si Banjimoun dans la Réunion, moi trouvais qu'ils étaient une tendance vraiment mettre. Ah, tes gars!
Comment il est, man?
Nous, le gabier, nous, le bas de carré, et quoi, comment il dit, là?
Il est anglais, lui!
Il est anglais, lui! Et, ça, non. Comment ils disent, how they say, when they say, like, tontine?
Tontine, les... Arrête. Non, mais. Arrête.
En fait, c'est
juste... Catherine les belles.
Catherine les belles, donc je pense qu'ils sont un peu plus expressifs dans la façon dont ils parlent, mais comparé au créole mauricien, je dirais, ils sont beaucoup plus expressifs comparé au créole mauricien. Mais ça reste une belle langue. Je comprends pas mal le créole rayonnais. C'est vrai que quand t'écoutes, forcément, t'as des accents, t'as des, voilà, comme dans toutes les langues, you've got slang, ça se voit. Yep. Mais des fois, quand j'écoute quelqu'un et tu fais vraiment attention à ce qu'ils disent, ben, t'arrives à comprendre, en fait. Parce que tu vois que c'est très, très proche du créole mauricien ou du français. Donc, peut-être tu pigeras pas tout, mais tu sais quelque part de quoi il s'agit quand il s'agit quand il y a quelques rayonnés qui parlent à côté de toi. Donc,
et pour les gens qui parle pas le français et les créoles, lui, il vient de changer la langue. Ouais. Et maintenant, il parle en français.
Ouais, donc, voilà, c'est ça.
Tu peux te présenter vite fait en français aussi?
Ouais, ben, vas-y. Du coup, ça fait quelque temps que j'habite ici en France. Donc j'ai vécu à La Réunion, j'ai vécu en Allemagne, j'ai vécu en France. Donc j'ai fait mes études à La Réunion. J'ai commencé avec la licence et par la suite j'ai fini en Allemagne. J'ai vécu quelques années à Maurice avant de revenir en France. Donc maintenant c'est pratiquement ma maison ici, donc j'habite ici depuis 5 ans. Mais ça fait quand même 13 ans que j'habite plus à Maurice. Donc j'ai pas mal bougé entre-temps. Je travaille dans le domaine de l'ingénierie des sciences des données, axé sur le côté transport et logistique. Donc j'habite sur Paris, ça fait 3 ans. Avant j'habitais sur la frontière avec la Suisse.
Besançon, c'est ça?
C'était à Besançon, c'est ça. C'était à Besançon. Et bah comme la majorité des tafs se trouvent sur Paris, ben t'es obligé de vraiment de bouger, quoi.
Huge thanks, Dylan, today. It's been comprehensive, very educational, and also a lot of fun. So, merci à vous.
I'm the first Mauritian on your podcast, so I feel privileged to be here.
Oh,
Am I?
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah.
You are the first, but if you watch soon, you're not going to be the last. We got some more Mauritians coming very soon.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks so much for sharing your knowledge with us today. Of course, Dylan's socials, Instagram, his channel as well, will be in the description box below. Make sure you check it out. And of course, we want to know what you think. Do you agree with our points? Do you disagree? Do you study in a conventional way, an unconventional way? Let us know everything down in the comments below. And we'd really appreciate it if you could hit that like button. Please subscribe, as it helps us to make more videos like this, and share it with anyone else you think would enjoy it. But with that, merci à zot et on se retrouve dans le prochain épisode.